Ted Cruz has just announced his candidacy for president of the United States. Let's pick it up in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Today I want to talk with you about the promise of America. Imagine your parents when they were children. Imagine a little girl growing up in Wilmington, Delaware. During World War II, the daughter of Irish and Italian Catholic family, working class, her uncle ran numbers in Wilmington. She grew up with dozens of cousins because her mom was the second youngest of 17 kids. She had a difficult father, a man who drank far too much and frankly didn't think that women should be educated. And yet this young girl, pretty and shy, was driven, was bright, was inquisitive. And she became the first person in her family ever to go to college. In 1956, my mom, Eleanor, graduated from Rice University with a degree in math and became a pioneering computer programmer in the 1950s and 1960s.
Bob, did you know that? It's a great story.
Imagine a teenage boy, not much younger than many of you here today, growing up in Cuba. Jet black hair, skinny as a rail. Involved in student council. And yet Cuba was not at a peaceful time. The dictator, Batista, was corrupt. He was oppressive. And this teenage boy joins a revolution. He joins a revolution against Batista. He begins fighting with other teenagers to free Cuba from the dictator. This boy at age 17 finds himself thrown in prison, finds himself tortured, beaten. And then at age 18, he flees Cuba. He comes to America. Imagine for a second the hope that was in his heart as he rode that ferry boat across to Key West and got on a Greyhound bus to head to Austin, Texas, to begin working, washing dishes, making 50 cents an hour, coming to the one land on earth that has welcomed so many millions. When my dad came to America in 1957, he could not have imagined what lay in store for him. Imagine a young married couple living together in the 1970s. Neither one of them has a personal relationship with Jesus. They have a little boy, and they're both drinking far too much. They're living a fast life. When I was 3, my father decided to leave my mother and me. We were living in Calgary at the time. He got on a plane and he flew back to Texas. And he decided he didn't want to be married anymore. And he didn't want to be a father to his 3-year-old son. And yet when he was in Houston, a friend, a colleague from the oil and gas business, invited him to a Bible study, invited him to Clay Road Baptist Church. And there my father gave his life to Jesus Christ. And God transformed his heart. And he drove to the airport. He bought a plane ticket. And he flew back to be with my mother and me. There are people who wonder if faith is real. I can tell you, in my family, there's not a second of doubt. Because were it not for the transformative love of Jesus Christ, I would have been saved and I would have been raised by a single mom without my father in the household. Imagine another little girl living in Africa, in Kenya and Nigeria. First crowd. Playing with kids, they spoke Swahili, she spoke English. Coming back to California, where her parents, who had been missionaries in Africa, raised her on the Central Coast. She starts a small business when she's in grade school, baking bread. She calls it Heidi's Bakery. She and her brother compete baking bread. They bake thousands of loaves of bread and go to the local apple orchard where they sell the bread to people coming to pick apples. She goes on to a career in business, excelling and rising to the highest pinnacles. And then Heidi becomes my wife and my very best friend in the world. Heidi becomes an incredible mom to our two precious little girls, Caroline and Catherine, the joys and loves of our life. Imagine another teenage boy being raised in Houston, hearing stories from his dad about prison torture in Cuba, hearing stories about how fragile liberty is, beginning to study the United States Constitution, learning about the incredible protections we have in this country that protect the God-given liberty of every American. Experiencing challenges at home. In the mid-1980s, oil prices crater, and his parents' business go bankrupt. Heading off to school over 1,000 miles away from home at a place where he knew nobody, where he was alone and scared. And his parents going through bankruptcy meant there was no financial support at home, so at the age of 17, he went to get 2 jobs to help pay his way through school. He took over $100,000 in school loans. Loans I suspect a lot of y'all can relate to. Loans that I'll point out I just paid off a few years ago. These are all of our stories. These are who we are as Americans. And yet, for so many Americans, the promise of America seems more and more distant. What is the promise of America? The idea that, the revolutionary idea that this country was founded upon, which is that our rights, they don't come from man. They come from God Almighty.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. from Ted Cruz as he's announcing his candidacy. We're looking at his, I mean, that's quite an amazing history. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't know even just his educational background. Just give me some highlights here of his educational background. He's
done some stuff.
He's remarkable.
He graduated cum laude from Princeton University with a bachelor's in public policy from, of course, the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs in 1992.
How did that happen?
Then he won Top Speaker Award at the 1992 U.S. National Debating Championship and the 1992 North American Debating Championship. So think about this when it gets to the debate stage.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. 1992, he was named a U.S. National Speaker of the Year and Team of the Year. Cruz was semifinalist 1995 World Universities Debating Championship, making him Princeton's highest-ranked debater at the championship.
Holy cow.
Princeton's debate team later named their annual novice championship after Cruz. It's called the Ted Cruz Award.
Oh, my gosh.
His senior thesis was on the separation of powers. And we can go into that more because the whole thing's out, his senior thesis, which is interesting enough. After graduating,
was it on Saul Alinsky?
No, it was not. That one's not released.
Right,
that one's not released.
After graduating from Princeton, Cruz attended Harvard Law School, graduating magna cum laude. I can never say that. Magna cum laude from in 1995 with a Juris Doctor degree. While at Harvard Law, Cruz was a primary editor of Harvard Law Review and executive editor of Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy.
So unlike Barack Obama, we know he was a really good student at 2 Ivy League schools.
Yes.
Because he graduated magna cum laude at both. That's amazing.
And he was a founding editor of Harvard Latino Law Review. How do you paint this guy into a hater?
But they will.
Alan Dershowitz, one of his professors, called him off-the-charts brilliant.
Oh, my gosh.
Off the charts brilliant.
From Alan Dershowitz, who's not obviously conservative.
How did he get all of these credentials and still turn out to be that guy? How did he turn out to be his parents? It is. Yeah. It's just his parents.
It also mentions here, Cruz participated in a Houston-based group called the Free Market Education Foundation. Are you familiar with that, Pat? You did radio in Houston for years. Where he learned about free market economic philosophers such as Milton Friedman, Friedrich Hayek, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, that's an amazing thing. Here's these little seeds that we plant and we think, oh, they're not working. This little seed was planted back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And that led to him partially doing what he's doing now. It's kind of an amazing thing.
And his candidacy, honestly, I believe, is the seed that was planted by the Tea Party. If it wasn't for the Tea Party, I don't think he'd be here.
He wouldn't even be senator.
No,
I mean, he had no chance of winning
no.
Right.
at the time.
Yeah.
To join a grassroots army across this nation, coming together and standing for liberty. I'm going to ask you to break a rule here today.
Oh, my.
And to take out your cell phones. And to text the word Constitution to the number 33733. You can also text Imagine. We're versatile. Once again, text Constitution to 33733. God's blessing has been on America from the very beginning of this nation. And I believe God isn't done with America yet. I believe in you. I believe in the power of millions of courageous conservatives rising up to reignite the promise of America. And that is why today I am announcing that I'm running for President of the United States.
Yeah. Deserves a little happy days.
I think it does.
Which we don't have time for right this second.
I think it does. A little happy days coming your way.
Yes.